Get ready to travel in the footsteps of Darwin. This is our review of On the Origin of Species.
On the Origin of Species is a tile placement game about doing research in the Galapagos Islands. And I'm a big science fan, so I always like to see what they do with these types of games.
I really enjoyed the competitive yet cooperative nature of the tile placement. We'll tell you all about it after this quick how to play. The game is played over a series of turns, with each player either performing a discovery or a research action on their turn.
When a player performs the research action, they'll place 2 observation cubes on different species tiles.
When a player performs a discover action, they will turn in observation cubes from the board to pay the cost of placing a new species tile.
When players play species tiles, they immediately gain the points and the benefits from the tile.
Playing species tiles will also move the beagle marker along its path.
Players continue taking turns placing cubes and tiles until the beagle reaches the end of its path.
Players will add up points from their species tiles and book cards, and the player with the most points wins. We were sent a copy of the game from the publisher so that we could do this review video.
If you'd like to find out more information or to buy a copy of the game, check out the links in the description below.
There have been a lot of Darwin games recently, I feel, and this is one of the more simple ones. It still involves a lot of strategy because it's tile placement and you want to get the species tile before somebody else does, and you want to be able to play the good species tiles to get the most points. But it's still a lot less complicated than some of the other Darwin games currently out there. So I really enjoyed this because I really enjoy evolution and Darwin and that type of science. So I really like the concept of this where you're joining him on his journey on the Beagle, going around the different islands, doing the research on the animals. So you're not really learning about natural selection or evolution per se. You're just kind of doing research on the animals. And it's basically a tile placement game where you're placing tiles, but you're also placing cubes on those tiles. And the cubes that you have on the tile will then give you the items that you need to get new species tiles. So there's that element of recipe fulfillment, but you're getting the elements of the recipe that you need from the tiles that your cubes are on. So I like the concepts that are integrated into this game, even if it's not as complicated as some of the other Darwin games.
Thematically, when you look at everything, when you look at the box, when you get to the table, you see all the pieces, the illustrations and stuff, you're like, okay, yeah, they really nailed it, or at least I think they did when it comes to the production value, and you're like, this is exactly what I thought a Darwin game would look like. I like Darwin, I like science, so I was really interested to see how this played, what were the mechanics, and you know, you got the Beagle, the ship, you got these little turtles that are like the score tracker, so you can see who has how many points. So all of that, I was like, okay, high points for that. Like, you really did it. Now, the strategy and everything, you know, I like learning how it combined everything. You see the animals, not too much words. You see the Latin names of the animals, so kind of a little learning aspect there. But I think it played pretty easy to learn and well, you know, for a certain age group or limit, right? But definitely had a lot of fun.
So the big strategy with this game is knowing when to discover, when to go after those new species tiles. Because the species tiles have different levels that will give you higher point values, but you'll need more resources in order to get those. But if another player plays a species tile and ends up replacing something, you may no longer have those resources available to you to get that species tile. So there's a lot of strategy in, all right, this round, am I placing cubes? Am I trying to build up my resources to really get a really strong species tile? Or do I get that medium level one before my opponents take the tiles that I'm on or take the tile that I'm going for, and then I gotta readjust my strategy. So you really gotta think about, oh, do I do this or do this? So even though you really only have 2 options on your turn, am I gonna place cubes or am I gonna use my cubes to then get a species tile? It's still a lot of thinking of, oh, do I do this or do I do that? I don't think there's analysis paralysis. I think Lee can answer that more because he suffers from it more so than some other people. But I don't feel like it. I don't remember you ever being like, like the whole time. So I don't think that you'll get analysis paralysis. But even though there's only 2 options, there's still a lot of thinking in this game.
Yeah, in terms of analysis paralysis, I didn't really get that, right? Because it's fairly obvious, okay, here's the resources, you put cubes, that's kind of like when you take it out, that's what that cube's worth, and then you try and discover the species that are available. So the only issue I might have had is like, ooh, I have enough to buy 2 leaves, but then now this feather's going to waste. So that's probably the only thing that I wanted to be very economical about. I'm like, oh man, I'm going to be wasting this one thing, but I really need to discover that one species that only needs 1.
When you place down the different species tiles, at the bottom of the species tile, it will tell you what you get. So this one right here will give you 3 points. You get a blue and a green card, and then you also get have a boat card, and then you're going to move the Beagle 2 spots. So that's what happens when you get the tile. So every time you get a species tile, you're going to get cards. Some of the cards will also give you different abilities that you can play throughout the game as well. So not only do you gain the cards as an ability of the species tile, but some of the cards will also give you abilities that you can then play later. So the different abilities on the cards are really helpful. So you definitely want to try to collect cards as you're going as well.
One thing I will say about the ship cards is the iconography. So any game that has it, you gotta, if you don't have a key next to you, it's kind of hard. Like, I mean, I think it felt a little intuitive where I'm like, okay, so this means I can do this, right? All right. But I don't think we really had like a player aid that told us like, hey, these icons, da-da-da. So every now and then we're like, okay, hold on. What does this do? Let me see the book. I think that was kind of my one thing about the game where obviously it's my first time playing or first couple times. So it's like, what does this do again? I would probably say I like these little anchors. These are like objective markers. So each game it's going to be a little bit different, and then it kind of just adds to kind of midpoint goals that you want to get points and everything.
I really like the competitive but cooperative nature of it because you want to get the species tiles that are worth the most points. You want to get the most benefits from the species tiles, but at the same time, you want to place the species tile that's going to be beneficial to helping you get the items that you need to then move forward, but that will also help the other players. And even if you can't afford a certain tile, you kind of want the other player, okay, well, I don't want them to get more points, but I do want them to play that tile so that I can then use those resources when I put my cubes on it. So there is that you're competing against each other for everything, but you also want other players to do certain actions so that you then don't have to do it, but then you'll be able to take a better move. So I really like that aspect of it. What did you not like about this game?
So I pretty much hinted at it. I think it was the lack of a player aid. I mean, just first-time players or people who just start playing, it's just always nice to have a little player aid there where you're like, oh, okay, that means that. I don't need to ask. Because it's always those things when we're playing and I'm like, hey, just randomly, if I have this symbol, what does it mean? And then now you know what I have. Or, yeah.
The thing that I didn't really like about this game is it doesn't have that much of a replay value. There are the objectives that can change each game and where the anchors go and when the boat's going to stop to add up points. That'll change. But for the most part, it's always, I'm going to put 2 cubes. I'm going to either turn in my cubes, put the species tile down, and the boat's going to move. We're going to do this, repeat, repeat, repeat. At the end, we're all going to score this amount of points. Whoever had the most got a little bit lucky by the timing of the species tile when they came out. They maybe just got a little bit lucky with that. But after a few plays, you're kind of like, yeah, I get the game. I don't really need to play it anymore.
Overall, like I said at the top, looking at the box and everything laid out, it really just, they did it right. It's like, yeah, that's what a picture in my mind of what a Darwin game would look like. As far as the play and everything like that, it didn't wow me, but I still had fun, and probably just because I'm like a big science fan. So overall, I'd give it a 5.5.
Overall, I really enjoyed the competitive and cooperative nature of the tile placement. However, I just feel like there's not a whole lot of replay value. You're just placing cubes, placing your tile, moving the boat along. After a few plays, you kind of, okay, I get the game, and you move on. So overall, I'm going to give the game a 6. And that was our review of On the Origin of Species.
What'd you think? Is this game a natural selection for your collection? Let us know in the comments below.
Once again, we'd like to thank the publisher for sending us a copy so that we could do this review video. And as always, if you're enjoying our content, please like this video, subscribe to our channel.
Until next time, I'm Lee.
And I'm Kenny, and go party like a board gamer.